They're similar. We were able to record, to motion capture on stage, which we did. No, a lot of the developments in motion capture aren't really applicable to us, but I know that too with some of the other films that we have done, you know, the Planet of the Apes films being a case, the big thing that they then moved on from being able to motion capture on the set is motion capture 20 actors at the same time, all in motion capture suits on the set. That was the next big thing hurdle that had to be crossed, is how, because you got all these motion capture cameras and you got performers in suits with all these dots, and so all the cameras are like, they're recording 20 different people and they've got to figure out these dots of who, that dot belongs to this person and that dot belongs to that character and that dot belongs to that person. You know, the computer has to actually work out who the hell, has to be able to differentiate between the different individuals. And so I think Weta have had 40, 50 people on stage at times now, being motion captured all at the same time.
There's a number of effects, right? I mean, there's Shrike, who's a digital creation, but we brought all the experience that we had from working with an actor in the key role on set, like we did with Andy on Rings with Gollum. We went into production with Shrike with a design that isn't his design. We got it to a point that with a lot of pressure to get shooting, and we knew he was going to be this height, he was going to be sort of robotic, was sort of part man, and we kind of got to this point where it was, okay, look, that's good enough for us to shoot with. We're going to have Stephen on set in the suit, and that's fine. But we've got to keep going. And it wasn't until we finished shooting and we started seeing Stephen's performance, and we're like, well, that's never going to translate to that design. We should have been a bit more wiser, but as part of the process, it would be something that we could then address. And we did, and we then went through the process of designing Shrike around Stephen's, face and his performance. But he was tricky because he wasn't like an animal that we could take reference from, and he wasn't just a robot that we could mechanize. He had to be a blend of the two. And he had to be an interesting design that we took that was different to Terminator or RoboCop or things that we've seen before. We had to give him his own aesthetic and his own character and make him very human, yet threatening and robotic and relentless at the same time. And Hester's scar is a digital makeup. And we had a prosthetic which was sort of very fine, but it was as far as we could push makeup, but we wanted her to be disfigured. We wanted to have this gouge through her face, and so we actually had to do that digitally to create the actual indentation that you couldn't naturally do. There was a way you used to be able to do it with makeup, which was you'd paint collodion on the skin and that would actually shrink the skin. And it would it actually would disfigure you, and it's really bad for your skin, and there's actors that used to use it that have skin issues now. So it's illegal and you shouldn't use it. And we weren't going to do that to Hera. So, so we did that digitally.
Was there a software that previously existed that's been redone for Mortal Engines?
I don't know. I honestly couldn't tell you if we wrote anything for Mortal Engines. We tend to usually write something because often it's simulation software too. It's simulation meaning if you've got a pile of dust on the table and you fan it with your hand, you've got to simulate the wind blowing on the dust, and it's sort of it's that simulating the natural world. And so there's a lot of simulation in this movie because of the vehicles, the movement. They all create dust. They all squash the ground flat because they're so heavy, and so they're interacting with the environment all the time. Which you've got to create a simulation software. So it wouldn't surprise me if they wrote simulation. I mean, they're always writing software. Yeah. Look, I'm not a computer guy, and I actually don't really understand much about how any of it works. But good on them.
The cities probably are one of the most difficult aspects because the fact that everything's moving, it really throws it out when you start moving the ground. And so we sort of actually approached some of it in a bit of an old-fashioned way of just hand modeling everything, because it all had to be animatable to move, which usually you don't have to do with your environments. You can build them, set them in place, and just let the simulations run. But we actually had to move ours through space. So it created a whole lot of separate problems because they're not used to having the layouts that are usually fixed to be in motion. When I investigated and I read the books, I thought, well, you're never going to be able to pull that off. Like the scale of it, the scale of the cities, rumbling over the earth. Yeah, I thought that you're never going to be able to create that scale on screen. So that's what stuck out to me, was that it was going to be impossible to achieve. And here we are.